Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The silence of the battlefield, when humanity's warship stole the show. The Galactic hegemony's massive fleet darkened Earth's skies as they approached. Their ships, like metal mountains floating among the stars, cast long shadows over major cities. Admiral Teju stood tall on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his six-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the blue-green planet below. "Primitive," he muttered, watching Earth's television and radio signals. Humans fighting wars over land and resources, humans celebrating sports victories, humans living ordinary lives unaware that their world was about to change forever. His second-in-command, Captain Sun Wu, approached with a bow. "Admiral, scans confirm they have basic nuclear weapons and a few simple space stations. No planetary shields, no faster-than-light capabilities." Tahoe nodded. "Another easy conquest for the glory of the hegemony. Send the standard message." Across Earth, every screen flickered. Cell phones, computers, televisions, billboards, all displayed the same message. "People of Earth, you are now part of the galactic hegemony. Your planet has been claimed. You have one planetary rotation to surrender control of all governmental systems. Resistance will result in your extinction." In homes and offices, on streets and in shopping centers, panic spread like wildfire. Parents held their children close. Military bases scrambled fighters that everyone knew would be useless. Religious leaders called for prayer. Doomsday preppers smiled grimly as they sealed their bunkers. At the United Nations in New York, emergency lights flashed as world leaders gathered. The Secretary General, face pale with fear, opened the session. "We must decide quickly. The fate of humanity rests on what we do in the next few hours." The American president stood. "Our nuclear missiles can't reach their ships. They're holding position beyond lunar orbit." "Even if they could," the Russian president added, "their technology appears centuries beyond ours." One by one, leaders spoke of surrender as the only option. Save lives now, perhaps negotiate better terms later, become a peaceful part of this galactic empire. Then in the back of the room, a small woman with silver-streaked black hair stood up. Dr. Ju Kim, head of the International Deep Science Initiative, walked slowly to the podium. Few recognized her. Her work had been kept secret for decades. "Distinguished leaders," she began, her voice quiet but firm, "I request 5 minutes of your time." The Secretary General checked his watch. "4 minutes, Doctor. We must draft our response soon." Dr. Ju nodded. "The hegemony believes us defenseless. They see our rockets, our satellites, our nuclear weapons. They think they know what humanity is capable of." She paused, looking around the room. "They are wrong." She tapped a small device, and a hologram appeared above the center of the room, far more advanced than any holographic technology publicly known on Earth. 50 years ago, we detected the first signs of the hegemony's approach. Their conquest of the Centauri systems gave us our warning. While the world's attention focused on ordinary conflicts and technological developments, a secret project began. The hologram showed underground facilities built into mountains, beneath oceans, hidden in plain sight. Project Prometheus has operated in absolute secrecy. Thousands of our best scientists from every nation working together with a single purpose: to develop defenses against this very day. Murmurs filled the room. The Chinese premier stood up. "This is impossible. No such project exists." "Your own government contributed 32 scientists and nearly $1 trillion in secret funding," Dr. Ju replied calmly. "Each nation here did their part, kept separate so no single intelligence agency could discover the whole truth." The hologram changed to show a network of tiny satellites, invisible to conventional detection. "We have deployed a defensive grid throughout our solar system. Not the clumsy satellites in public orbit, but quantum-entangled nanomachines that can dismantle any technology they touch." The Brazilian president laughed bitterly. "You expect us to believe we secretly built advanced technology that could stop a civilization capable of interstellar travel?" Dr. Ju smiled. "No, we did something much smarter." The hologram showed alien ships, hegemony scout vessels. We captured their scouts. We've been studying their technology for decades, reverse engineering it and improving upon it. Shocked silence filled the room. But how, the Japanese prime minister whispered, how was this hidden from everyone? Because we had to, Dr. Ju said simply. The hegemony has conquered 1,000 worlds. They monitor developing civilizations. Any species that shows too much advancement too quickly is deemed a future threat and destroyed before they can reach the stars. So we developed along two paths, the public face of humanity that they could see and the hidden work that would save us when they finally came. She turned off the hologram and faced the assembled leaders. We don't need to surrender. We don't need to beg. We need to show the hegemony that humanity is not like the others they've conquered. The Secretary General studied her face. You're certain these defenses will work? I stake my life on it, Dr. Ju replied, and the lives of everyone on Earth. After a tense debate, the vote was unanimous. Earth would not surrender. As the deadline approached, Admiral TJO grew restless on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. No response from the humans, Captain Sunu reported. Tahoe bared his sharp teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. Then they choose extinction, prepare the first wave of bombardment, target their largest cities. The massive ship's weapon systems hummed to life. Energy built within the plasma cannons, glowing with deadly blue light. Fire, Tahoe commanded. Brilliant streaks of energy shot toward Earth. On screens throughout the ship, the crew watched eagerly for the explosions that would begin another successful conquest. Instead, the plasma bolts simply vanished as they entered Earth's atmosphere. Weapon malfunction, an officer reported frantically. No impact detected. Impossible, Tahoe snarled. Fire again all weapons. A second volley launched. Again, the deadly plasma disappeared without effect. Then on the main view screen, a woman's face appeared. Dr. Ju looked directly at Teo, her expression calm. Admiral Tahoe of the Galactic Hegemony, I am Dr. Ju Kim of Earth. We decline your offer of surrender. You have miscalculated. Humanity is not defenseless, and we are not like the others you have conquered. As she spoke, alarm klaxons began blaring throughout the hegemony fleet. Tiny objects, invisible until now, swarmed the outer hulls of their ships. Metal began to disintegrate as nanomachines systematically broke molecular bonds. How? Tahoe demanded, genuine fear in his voice for the first time in his long career of conquest. Your species is primitive, Dr. Ju smiled. That's what we wanted you to think. You have 24 hours to leave our solar system, Admiral. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety. As the transmission ended, Tahoe stared at the view screen in disbelief. For the first time in the hegemony's 1,000-year expansion, they had found a world that fought back and was winning. Admiral Teju stared at the message glowing on his command screen, his yellow eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. The humans had refused to surrender. In 1,000 years of hegemony expansion, this had never happened before. They declined, Captain Sunu asked, leaning forward to read the message himself. This is unexpected. The bridge crew looked to their admiral. Some seemed amused, others confused. Tejo's face hardened as he regained his composure. It seems these humans have more spirit than intelligence, he said, rising from his command chair. Put their response on the main screen. The message was simple. We decline your offer. You have 24 hours to leave our solar system or face consequences. Laughter rippled through the bridge. Commander Hyan, the weapons officer, actually had to cover her mouth to stop herself. Consequences? From a species that still burns fossil fuels? She shook her head. Their most advanced weapons couldn't even scratch our defensive shields. Tahoe nodded, but something bothered him. The calm confidence of the message didn't match what they knew about human behavior. Their historical record showed panic, fear, and desperate measures in times of crisis. This response showed none of that. Run another scan of the system, he ordered. Check for any defensive capabilities we might have missed. The scans came back negative. Earth had satellites, a few space stations, and primitive missile systems, nothing that could harm a hegemony warship, let alone the entire fleet. "They're bluffing," Captain Sunu concluded, "or perhaps they're in denial about their situation." Tahoe drummed his fingers on the arm of his chair. The standard protocol was clear. Any species that refused assimilation would be reduced to a pre-industrial state through targeted bombardment of major population centers. The survivors would then be more accepting of hegemony rule. "Begin the orbital bombardment," he finally commanded. "Standard extinction protocol, target their 20 largest cities simultaneously." The weapons officers moved quickly, plotting firing solutions. The massive plasma cannons on the underside of each hegemony vessel began to glow with blue-white energy. The destructive power of just one shot could level an entire city. "Weapons locked on targets," Commander Hygen reported. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. The bridge crew watched the screens as 20 streams of plasma energy shot toward Earth. The blue bolts burned through space, entered the atmosphere, and then vanished. The tracking systems showed no impacts, no explosions. The plasma torpedoes had simply disappeared. "Technical malfunction," Captain Sun Wu suggested, already working at his console. "Perhaps atmospheric interference." Tahoe's eyes narrowed. "Fire again, double the power." The second volley launched. 40 plasma torpedoes, each capable of destroying a major city, streaked toward Earth. Like the first wave, they entered the atmosphere and vanished without effect. An uneasy silence fell over the bridge. This was not a malfunction. This was not a coincidence. Something was stopping their weapons. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, voice rising in alarm. "We're detecting movement near our hull." The main screen shifted to an external view of the Eternal Dominion. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Then, as they watched, a section of the armored plating began to change. It seemed to shimmer, then dissolve. "What's happening?" Tahoe demanded, gripping his command chair. "Unknown, sir. Sensors detect millions of tiny objects surrounding our ship. They're taking us apart." Now alarms blared throughout the ship. Reports flooded in from every deck. The hull was being disassembled at the molecular level, not just on the flagship, but across the entire fleet. "Impossible," Tahoe roared, slamming his fist on his command console. "No species at this development stage should possess nanotechnology this advanced." He ordered an emergency transmission to Earth. A moment later, Dr. Ju's face appeared on screen. "I see you've met our defense system, Admiral," she said calmly. "Currently, it's only removing your weapon systems and engines. We have no desire to harm your crews." "How?" Tahoe demanded. "Your technology is primitive. We've been monitoring Earth for decades." "Yes, you have," Dr. Ju nodded. "And we've been aware of your monitoring. Everything you saw, we wanted you to see." On Earth, deep beneath a mountain in what was publicly known as a weather research station, Dr. Ju sat in the control center of Project Prometheus. Around her, hundreds of scientists and military personnel monitored screens showing the hegemony fleet. "Nanomachine swarms operating at 94% efficiency," her assistant reported. "All hegemony weapon systems have been neutralized." Dr. Ju nodded, watching as the tiny machines methodically disabled the alien fleet. Each nanomachine was smaller than a dust particle, but they worked together in the billions, communicating through quantum entanglement technology reverse-engineered from captured hegemony scout ships decades ago. "Humans have always been underestimated," she whispered. "It's our greatest advantage." Back on the Eternal Dominion, chaos reigned. Ship systems failed one after another. The once mighty warship drifted powerless in space. "Retreat," Tahoe ordered. "All ships break orbit and retreat." But it was too late. The engines had been the first systems disabled by the nanomachines. The hegemony fleet was trapped. "Admiral," Captain Sun Wu said quietly, "I believe we should consider negotiation." Tahoe's pride warred with his duty to protect his crew. Finally, he nodded. "Open a channel to Earth." Dr. Ju appeared again on screen. "Have you reconsidered your position, Admiral?" "What do you want?" Tahoe asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. First information, she replied. Your empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We want to know about them. Then we want to discuss the future, a future where the hegemony no longer expands through force. Tahoe laughed bitterly. The hegemony has stood for 10,000 years. It will not change its ways because one primitive world got lucky. Dr. Ju smiled. Look outside your viewport, Admiral. Does this look like luck to you? The nanomachines had now formed visible patterns on the hulls of the hegemony ships, writing in the hegemony's own language. This is humanity's first and last warning. We could have destroyed your fleet entirely, Dr. Ju continued. Instead, we chose to demonstrate our capabilities without taking lives. Consider that carefully when you report back to your leaders. With that, the nanomachines began to withdraw, leaving the disabled fleet intact but powerless. We're restoring minimal power to your engines, enough to take you home, Dr. Ju explained. When you return, tell the Hegemony Council what happened here. Tell them Earth is not to be touched, and tell them we'll be watching. As the transmission ended, Tahoe stared at the blank screen. In his long career conquering worlds for the hegemony, he had never faced defeat. He had never imagined it possible. Set course for Hegemony Prime, he ordered quietly. We must inform the Council. As the damaged fleet limped away from Earth, Dr. Ju watched them go from her control center. Phase 1 of humanity's plan had worked perfectly. Now came the harder part, preparing for the hegemony's return because they would return. She was certain of it, and next time they would not underestimate humanity. The truth about humanity was far more complex than the hegemony could have imagined. 200 years earlier, in 2125, a small research station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, detected unusual energy readings from deep space. Dr. Minjin Li, a young astronomer, was the first to realize they were looking at the remnants of an advanced battle. Two unknown alien civilizations had fought a war at the edge of our solar system. The discovery was kept secret. When the research team recovered fragments of the alien ships, world leaders met in an emergency summit. They chose to hide the evidence from the public. These fragments contained technology beyond human understanding, but they also contained star charts, records, and warnings. The galaxy, they learned, was dominated by empire builders. The strongest was the Galactic hegemony, conquering worlds for 10,000 years. Their method was simple but effective. Monitor developing civilizations, let them advance to a certain point, then conquer them before they became real competition. If they discover our true potential, they'll destroy us immediately, Dr. Minjin told the world leaders. We must hide our real progress. And so began the greatest deception in human history. On the surface, technology advanced at a normal pace. Cars, phones, computers, space stations, all improved gradually. The world public saw only this carefully managed progress. But hidden from view, a second track of development emerged. Secret research bases were built deep underground, inside mountains, beneath oceans, and on the far side of the moon. The best scientists from every nation worked together, using the recovered alien technology to make massive leaps forward. By 2225, the hidden side of humanity had developed technology centuries beyond what they showed to the watching stars. Nanomachines that could build or destroy anything at the molecular level, quantum computing that could break any code, energy shields that could absorb and redirect almost any attack. Jin-Woo Park, grandson of one of the original researchers, led the team that developed the planetary defense system. His wife, Dr. Nari Park, created the nanomachine swarms that now protected Earth. The hegemony will come eventually, Jin-Woo told his team. We must be ready when they do. The secret agencies detected the first hegemony scout ship in 2275. It entered the solar system quietly, observing Earth from a distance. Instead of destroying it, humanity's hidden defenders tracked it, studied it, and then did something brilliant. They let it see exactly what they wanted it to see. Show them old satellites, Nari ordered. Show them primitive nuclear weapons. Show them slow rockets and basic space stations. When the scout ship left, it carried back false information that marked Earth as an easy target for future conquest. Over the next 50 years, more scouts came. Each time they were allowed to observe the false face of humanity's development. Meanwhile, the hidden side advanced even further. Humans quietly expanded throughout their own solar system, building bases inside asteroids and on distant moons. They developed quantum mines, invisible weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They planted these throughout the solar system, creating an invisible defensive grid. When Admiral Tijo's invasion fleet finally arrived in 2325, humanity was more than ready. Now, as the damaged hegemony ships attempted to retreat from Earth, they encountered the second layer of humanity's defenses. As they passed the orbit of Mars, proximity sensors detected their movement. "Admiral, new contacts appearing all around us," Captain Sunwoo shouted. The quantum mines activated, appearing from nowhere like bubbles popping into existence. Each mine was a sphere of swirling energy, impossible according to the technological understanding the hegemony believed humans possessed. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms blared. 3 smaller ships in the fleet moved too close to the mines and simply vanished, not destroyed but teleported to the outer edge of the solar system, their systems completely disabled. "What is happening?" Taho demanded, gripping his command chair as his ship shuddered. "These weapons shouldn't exist, not on this world." The main view screen activated without command. Dr. Ju's face appeared again, but this time she was standing in a control center that looked nothing like primitive Earth technology. Behind her, holographic displays showed the entire hegemony fleet, tracked down to the smallest detail. "Admiral Taho, I see you've met our quantum defense grid," she said calmly. "Don't worry, it won't destroy your ships unless you try to attack again. It will simply redirect you to a safe exit vector from our system." Taho's 4-fingered hands clenched into fists. "What are you?" he growled. "These technologies, they're impossible for a world at your stage of development." Dr. Ju smiled. "What you've seen of Earth has been carefully managed, Admiral. We've studied your empire for decades, your conquest patterns, your technological capabilities. We intercepted your scout ships 100 years ago and let them report back exactly what we wanted you to see." Taho's mouth opened and closed in shock. "Impossible. No species has ever." "No species you've encountered before," Ju corrected. "But then, you've never met humans." She gestured, and the view behind her changed to show historical footage. The recovery of alien ship fragments 2 centuries earlier, the detection of the first hegemony scout ship, the building of the secret bases. "We've known about the hegemony for generations," she explained. "We saw what happened to other worlds that displayed their full technological potential too early, so we hid ours, knowing that one day you would come." In the hidden command center beneath Mount Peku, Dr. Ju stood surrounded by the leaders of Project Prometheus. General Minyu watched the fleet's retreat on the main tactical display. "They'll be back," he said grimly, "and in greater numbers." "Of course they will," Dr. Ju agreed. "This was just the first test of our defenses, but now they know we're not what they thought we were." Yuna, the quantum physicist who had designed the mind grid, looked up from her console. "The fleet is passing Pluto's orbit now. Should we let them go?" Dr. Ju nodded. "Yes, but first, let's give them something to take home." She pressed a control on her wrist device. Throughout the hegemony fleet, small devices activated, quantum transmitters that had been attached by the nanomachines. These couldn't harm the ships, but they would continue sending data back to Earth, allowing humans to monitor the hegemony's response. Additionally, every computer system on every ship received the same message, translated into the hegemony language. "We have lived in peace for centuries. We wish to continue doing so. But understand this, Earth is not for conquest. Return in peace or not at all." As the hegemony fleet disappeared into deep space, Dr. Ju turned to her team. "Phase 1 is complete. Now we prepare for Phase 2. The room buzzed with activity. What had begun centuries ago as a desperate plan for survival had worked perfectly. Humanity had revealed its true face to the galaxy, not as an easy conquest, but as a force to be reckoned with. And in the vastness of space, the hegemony fleet carried this message back to their empire. For the first time in 10,000 years, they had found a species that had outsmarted them. The consequences would echo across the stars. The damaged hegemony ships limped through space, their once mighty hulls now scarred and broken. Admiral Teju stood at the viewscreen, watching the blue dot of Earth fade behind them, his proud shoulders slumped in defeat. For the first time in his long career, he had failed to conquer a world. Worse, he had been utterly outmaneuvered by a species the hegemony had dismissed as primitive. "Set course for Hegemony Prime," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." But maximum speed was now barely faster than light. The nanomachines had damaged their main engines, leaving only the backup systems functional. What should have been a 2-week journey would now take 6 months. "The Emperor will not be pleased," Captain Sunu said, standing beside his admiral. Taho's face darkened. "The Emperor must know the truth. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered." As the fleet traveled home, strange things began happening throughout the vast hegemony empire. On the agricultural world of Vexor, the automated harvest systems suddenly stopped working. On the mining planet Kral, the great extraction machines fell silent. In the shipyards of Narvik, half-built warships lost power. No one died, no buildings collapsed, but across 1,000 worlds, the most advanced hegemony systems simply stopped. The hegemony's leaders were confused. Their engineers found no answers, their security forces discovered no sabotage. Yet the pattern was clear. Something or someone was demonstrating power over their technology. Then the communications networks began to fail. Planet after planet found itself cut off from the Empire. The golden holographic displays in the Imperial Palace flickered and died, leaving the Emperor and his advisors in darkness. "What is happening?" the Emperor demanded, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in anger. No one could answer him. High above Hegemony Prime, the capital planet of the Empire, tiny objects moved in perfect formation, invisible to standard sensors. These nanomachines had been waiting patiently for their activation signal. When they received it, they began their work, not destroying but revealing. In the Grand Council chamber, the Emperor and representatives from the most important worlds sat in emergency session. The chamber's golden walls and high ceiling were designed to impress visitors with the hegemony's power and wealth. But today, the rulers of 1,000 worlds felt fear for the first time in generations. "The disruptions follow the same pattern on every world," reported the chief security officer. "Precision targeting of key systems. No casualties, no permanent damage. It's as if someone is sending us a message." The Emperor's clawed hand tightened on his ceremonial staff. "But who? Who has this kind of reach into our empire?" The massive doors at the far end of the chamber, doors protected by energy shields and elite guards, suddenly opened. The guards stood frozen, unable to move or speak. A single figure walked calmly through the doorway. He was human. He wore a simple gray suit with no decorations or markings. He carried no visible weapons. He looked entirely ordinary, which made his presence here in the most secure room in the galaxy all the more shocking. "Who are you?" the Emperor demanded, rising from his throne. "How did you enter this chamber?" The human stopped in the center of the room and bowed slightly. "I am Ambassador Shunho of Earth. I bring humanity's terms." Shocked silence filled the chamber. Earth was 90,000 light-years away. No ship could have brought this human here so quickly after the failed invasion. "Impossible," whispered a counselor. "They couldn't have." "We have been among you for generations," Junho explained, his voice calm and measured, watching, learning, preparing for this day. The Emperor's anger overcame his shock. "Guards, seize this creature." The guards tried to move but remained frozen in place. Shunho smiled apologetically. "I'm afraid they can't hear you right now. None of your security systems are functioning. Please listen to what I have to say. It will save many lives." He reached into his pocket and removed a small device. With a tap, a holographic display appeared above the council table. It showed the hegemony's empire, 1,000 stars linked by trade routes and military supply lines. "Humanity has come to offer terms," Chunho said. "The hegemony will dismantle its empire. All subjugated worlds will be granted independence. A federation of equals will replace imperial rule." This transition will be peaceful and orderly, overseen by representatives from Earth and former hegemony worlds. The council chamber erupted in outrage. Councilors shouted and pounded the table. The emperor's face darkened with fury. "This is preposterous," he roared. "One primitive world cannot dictate terms to us. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We have fleets that can reduce your planet to ash." Chun-Ho waited patiently for the noise to subside. Then he smiled sadly. "Your fleet already tried that approach, Emperor. It failed. We could have destroyed your ships entirely, but chose mercy. Don't mistake this for weakness." With another tap on his device, the hologram changed. Now it showed Hegemony Prime from orbit. Surrounding the planet were thousands of tiny objects, more nanomachine swarms, invisible until now. "These machines could dismantle your world down to its atomic structure," Chun-Ho explained. "They could do the same to any world in your empire. They've been in place for decades, waiting." The room fell silent again, this time from fear rather than shock. "We've lived in your shadow for generations," Jono continued, "watching you conquer and subjugate, no more. This is humanity's warning, our only warning."